Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, people of all ages, welcome back to the Sticky Floors Podcast. I am one of your hosts, CJ. I am joined by Mr. Will, and tonight we are back on Netflix and we are talking about the movie Triple Frontier, which asks the question or answers the question, what would happen if Moon Knight and Mr. Fantastic and Zack Snyder's Batman decided to rob a Colombian drug dealer,
Mm.
and the plan went completely wrong. Mr. Will, what's up with you? How you doing today, sir?
Oh man, I'm good, man. What's going on with you, yo?
Man, I'm doing good, man. This is a movie that I've wanted to cover for a while now, so I'm glad we're finally getting around to it, man. Let's jump right into this one, man. I'm gonna kick it over to you for the synopsis.
Appreciate that, man. Triple Frontier plunges viewers into a morally ambiguous world where a group of former Special Forces operatives reunite for a high stakes heist in Colombia. Former Special Forces operative Santiago Pope Garcia trades sanctioned warfare for shadow diplomacy, operating as a private military advisor in his ancestral homeland of Colombia. Driven by a personal crusade to combat the drug trade, Pope cultivates a relationship with Giovanna, an informant whose intel on the elusive cartel kingpin Gabriel Martin Lorea presents both an opportunity and moral dilemma. When Giovanna pleads for the relocation of herself and her imprisoned brother, Pope sees a chance to tie justice to loyalty and possibly redemption. He assembles a crew of his estranged comrades, the war-weary Tom Redfly Davis, the stoic brothers William Ironhead and Benjamin Benny Miller, and ace pilot Francisco Catfish Morales, all men fractured by civilian life, yet still bound by battlefield instincts. Initially framed as a clean-cut intelligence mission with a modest payout, the operation quickly evolves into an audacious plan to eliminate Lorea and liberate millions from his jungle fortress. However, the line between mission and greed blurs as the team stumbles upon far more cash than what they had anticipated,
Mm.
forcing them to carry not only the burden of stolen wealth, but also the weight of compromised honor. As terrain, trust, and tempers erode, their journey becomes less about extraction and more about survival against the jungle, each other, and their own unraveling moral codes.
There it is, man. Yo, if there was ever a movie that should have Cream as part of the soundtrack, it's this one right here, man. Yo, I
Uh,
remember when this joint came out on Netflix, I watched it and I loved it right from the beginning. And when I went back to watch it again, I like it even more now. And I just think it's like for all the reasons that you said in your summary, it's a very layered film, and it you think it's kind of like about one thing, but it's actually like this deeper just narrative about not only greed but how all of these systems kind of work together to create the destabilization of countries and individuals and make people put people in situations where they can compromise their morals.
that last sentence right there is key to, I think, the movie itself. Like it's the unilateral tying linchpin, whatever you want to call it. Um, One, you got these guys that they're trained operators coming from a foreign nation, and that nation happens to have a history of destabilization,
Yep.
just outright greed, wealth accumulation, power hungry, just corrupt, debauchery at its utmost. So that part right there hits home on any level. I don't care where you're from, where you're at, who you are, what your interests are. But then the next thing is, I think, the sympathetic character, Giovanna, because she is not only of that place, so she just grew up amongst these wolves and had to, fend them off as best as she knows how. And sometimes that means even getting into bed with them or seeing how it corrupts innocent family members. Like they
Yeah.
stole her younger brother, mind you, stole his childhood. So not only
Yeah.
can she not defend him as a big sister, but also as a woman because, physically she's not as strong to beat off all of these guys who are
Yeah.
carrying submachine guns and stuff. And then last but not least, out of desperation, she clings to these the set of five guys, one in particular than the other, in hopes of re-establishing herself in another foreign country. So now she is having to relocate not once, not twice, but three times. Once from her city or town, wherever she's from. The next back and forth to the different home of the drug dealer in his world, metaphysically that is, and then in turn leave the country of Colombia altogether to Australia.
Yeah, yeah, and this is so you're and the character Yavana, that's Adria Arjona.
There's
I think hopefully I'm saying that right. It's the second time that we've covered her because we also she was in Blink twice,
Yep.
so that was the first time that we saw something with her. And you're right about all of the different layers. And there's something that you said in the intro when you talked about how Pope is going about this process of shadow government, shadow democracy, kind of.
Yeah.
And it's really a good point because he's involved in sort of trying to fix the country, right? But he's going about it through these channels and these means that are much more like an assassin than like a person actually in the government. And there's this narrative throughout the movie of just kind of the way the characters themselves, who are all like trained soldiers, have now processed what does it mean to take the oaths that they did, and what does that mean for like how they're going to carry out this mission, which they're very clear on is theft.
And the way that Red Fly, again, one of I, I think I'm coming around that Ben Affleck might be one of my top 10 favorite actors.
Yo, he is your.
Um,
You coming around to that? In
because it
10,
was like,
dog, he's five. Yo, he's five for you, man.
you know what it is? Because I was just like, yeah, he's all right. You know what I
This is
mean?
your man's.
And but I'm coming around to it. I just say that to say, here you have this guy who tells them straight from the rip, like he is no nonsense about it. He's like, you had honor, all that's
Yep.
thrown away. We are going on the run, essentially. We are throwing away all of the morals. And he said something to the effect of like, that allegiance you swore, you're spitting on that. So
Yeah.
like you could forget about
Yep.
anything. Like we're going to call this what it is. This is not us being soldiers with that flag on our shoulder.
Yeah.
Like that's it. And that also, when you fast forward rather, when they are in the scene where the plane goes down and they're in the
Yeah. In the
drug field,
village. In the village. Yep.
and they're in the and it's
Yep.
not, I can't even call it a village. It's a cocaine field,
Yeah.
and literally, they're like, you don't have no flags on your
I
arm.
know.
Where
I
you
know. That's when
like,
it came up. Yeah.
and I'd be like, well, you're a criminal too. So if we buck you, we don't owe you nothing. Like, just keep
Yeah.
it moving. But I'd say all that to say this: you're right. When this movie first dropped on Netflix, between this, is it Extract, the one with
Extraction with
Extraction,
yeah with
with
Thor.
Christopher
Yeah.
Hemsworth,
Yeah.
Thor.
With Thor. Yeah. That's
uh,
how. I mean, that's how these guys now. It's like they've become that character. Like when I watch something with Chris Evans, I'm like, oh, it's Captain America. Like whatever he is, that's who he is now.
I said like, oh man, all right, that's a dope movie. This is a dope
Hmm.
movie. And then there was one more. Oh, The Gray Man, and I was like,
Yeah.
wow,
I just yeah.
all the Avengers got a dope flick, or
Hmm.
or somewhat connected to, however,
Hmm.
like a Marvel movie or whatever. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. But then after that, it was like, I don't know, Netflix. And then I say that as a reference point. Netflix has put out a quality material out of those first three movies.
Yeah.
And I was really into this movie because of the track record that I had established.
Yeah.
And with this movie, it further gives a little bit more of a nuanced point of view where it says, hey, you can do or have intentions of doing the right thing. Pope is an optimist and he's an idealist. He wants to go back to Colombia where he's from because he had been telling his buddies for the longest, yo, I want to do some good. I'm going to go back home. I'm going to
Hmm.
try and make things right. And they kid him about it. And they even
Yeah.
go so far as to say, if you do, you're going to be involved with a native who is
A beautiful
attractive,
woman.
whatever.
Yeah. Of course.
And
And he does.
he does, and he
Hmm.
tries to downplay it, but they're like, dude, we know you. And that right there said it all for me because it was like, oh, I have friends that fall into these different types of categories. I have friends and family who, you know what, I may have not seen them in years, but we could pick up right where we are on. So the movie kept drawing me inward and
Yeah.
inward. And then last but not least, I was like, oh, you know what? On top of having Ben Affleck, on top of having Oscar Isaac, they also had a bunch of other supporting role characters like Benny. I hadn't seen him since Four Brothers,
Right.
and I was
Exactly.
and I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
oh wow,
Yeah.
okay. So it's like seeing an old friend again, and getting reacquainted.
Yeah. Some of the best scenes to me in the film are when they are all just kind of talking with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So I love like the bar scene with them
Yeah.
talking, and even when they first are kind of like, they have to cold camp,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just kind of like talking because that, I think as a group of men, like we've all kind of done that. Not that we've robbed Colombian drug deals and did that part, but But we definitely have done
When we
like the
catch
sit
him on this
around a fire,
platform doing
right?
it.
Right. We definitely sat around a campfire and just laughed and joked about things, and so I like that. And I think the quality of the acting and the actors is that you feel like they know each other well, like they relate to each other well, and that they also are good at holding each other accountable,
Yeah,
because that's the thing. Like when Red Fly kind of kirks out, right? Like Pope does check him, and then
yeah,
later on, Catfish checks Pope. And Benny and Ironhead check each other as brothers, but also under the auspices of what they've agreed to as soldiers in the past. So there's always like that sense of accountability and order, and what happens when the order is broken. That's also something that I think you can relate to if you've been obviously if you've been in the military, but even if you've ever just played a team sport, you know what it's like to,
mm.
break protocol, not do the right thing, and then have somebody on the team say, "Yo, you messed that up, and now we're in this situation."
And that's the thing too. I think that a lot of people forget. One, um, you have these transferable skills that you acquire at a young age, and I see
Hmm.
it mostly with a lot of my family members who are males, where they establish a hierarchy without having to speak these words, like, "Oh, you two are the best, or you two are the captains," and
Hmm.
it reminds me of like my childhood. And then it's like, "Oh, these guys can't be on the same team because they duplicate the same type of skill set. So
Yeah.
they always end up on separate teams." Or, "Oh, you know what? You're good at this. So we'll have to pick this guy too because the thing that you're bad at, he's good
He's
at."
good at,
So it's
yeah.
compliments that way too. Um, and then you mentioned the thing about like just the camaraderie aspect as far as in the different locations itself. The
Yeah.
jungle, I think, is a great backdrop as well as a living character, if you will, another supporting actor in this film. And I say that because one, it does a great job of lending itself as far as a camouflage or a coverage for not only their physical person but their emotional and their spiritual. Meaning, like, metaphorically speaking, like it's the blanket that surrounds them. They feel best there than they do in the so-called civilized, cultivated, street, urban, suburban areas. Like Dragonfly is failing. Excuse me, Fire, Red Fly. I don't know
Hmm.
why. I'm thinking of GI Joe. Red Fly is struggling as a realtor or
Hmm.
some type of real estate agent.
Yeah, he
Um,
sells condos. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't even know if he does that well because he didn't
he, s-
prep
he says
anything,
he
knowing
says
that.
he doesn't do
Yeah,
a good job of it, actually.
and that's the thing. Like the window was messed up when he's showing the couple. The lady's pregnant.
Mhm.
Like, dude, you didn't make any effort whatsoever. It's not that you're
Right.
failing. It's the antithesis of what you did in the military. You were very strategic. You were very
Hmm.
matter of fact. You were very detailed oriented. And here you're just lackadaisical at best. Um, and then it crystallizes itself when he's like, he's talking about his daughter, and he's like, "Nah, Pope, she don't hear me. She's a teenager. It's whatever. We're good here." And
We
then
all been
she,
there.
and then she says to him, "I just miss you.
Yeah.
Like I miss who you used to be." And yet this dude is telling everybody straight off the rip, "No, she only allows me in the garage. We're getting a divorce. I have to pay for two lifestyles, two homes, two
Yep.
everything." And I immediately thought of this one friend of ours where I kid him all the time, like, "You got two wives." And I was sitting there thinking, like, he has two wives too. The military, his former life, whatever that process is, that thing is, and then his soon to be ex wife.
Yeah, and the characters, they're all sort of in different phases of, like you said, like that transition from being in the military to becoming something else, right? And it's like, like, so Red Fly is he was like the captain, but now in his regular life, it's like he's not really running anything. He can barely
Mm-hmm.
kind of keep his own thing running. And then, like you said, like with Pope, Pope has become pretty much like a mercenary for all intents and
Yeah,
purposes, right? Like he's like become almost like a spy, like the spy, it's like the James Bond type, like,
especially
the
when he picks
Latino.
off that guy and throws the gun in his hands, like, "Good shot."
Yeah, right, exactly. So he's there. Then you got Ironhead, who's really, to me, still the consummate soldier, right? Who believes in all the things. Then you got
Motivational speaker.
right. Then you got Benny, who's the action junkie, right? So he's like the guy who's like, he reminds me of the dude from Heat, who was saying the action is the juice.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
he's like
Rest in
that guy.
peace to him too
Yeah,
in real life, Tom
right.
Sizemore.
Tom Sizemore, yeah. And then Then you got, last but not least, Pedro Pascal, who's kind of interesting because he's the hardest. He was the hardest for me to read in the film because he kind
Mm.
of goes both ways. So it's at points he's very like when Red Flag kills the villagers, he's very condemning of that. But then
Mhm.
later on, when he's like, "Look, if we get to this boat and the
Oh,
boat's
I'm
not
running through
there,
them.
I'm killing everybody." Everybody's dying. So like it's a good mix of people, and to your point, they all have these strengths and these weaknesses that play off very well against each other. And I think the movie, in a way, it reminds me of like the role playing games that we used to play growing up, where you have a team and you need to get like the magician, and then you need to get the guy
Mm.
who's the warrior, and then you need to get somebody who's good with maps, and it's like just that kind of thing that just works together well. And I think that's like the heart of the story, and that's one of the reasons why I just really dug it.
And that's the thing too, though, man. Like, in a group such as that, like, and I'm by far be it for me to say like I'm an expert on military things, whatever have you, but in those types of groups, you do have individuals where they specialize in certain fields, so that
Hmm.
this way no one has to replicate that skill set.
Yeah.
Um, Yet these guys seem to be so discombobulated, and I don't know if you can. I don't know if you can.
That's gonna get into one of my questions down the last one
But
of my questions about it.
but that's my thing. Like, I don't know if you could tie it to, oh, they're just simply, civilians now. I think that's who they are.
Yeah.
I think that they may just be, a little zany, and you have to be that in order to be in the military.
Yeah, it's yeah, that's definitely into one of my questions, man. And then, there's also, as we said at the beginning, there's also this story about, like the greed and what happens when the money gets into play. Because, like you said in the beginning, Pope approaches Red Fly with, hey, come do this, 7 G's, just reconnaissance, and you're good. And he's like, he's cool because he needs the money, right? Like
Mhm.
that's cool, right? 10 days, or maybe it was 10,000.
It was ten
But then,
thousand.
yeah, but then it's like, oh, $250 million. Like you can see everybody's eyes growing,
Counting the
getting
money and
big.
spending the money before they even had it.
Absolutely right. Like Benny says, I'm gonna buy a Ferrari, right? Like as soon as they start hitting the wall, and the wall is the money, bunch of money in the wall. By the way, shout out to Street Kings, because that's what I thought
Mhm.
about with the money being hidden in the wall. It's like you can see the greed just got them. It's some a little bit more than others, but it's like, like that 48 laws of power, man. Never shoot past the mark you aimed for. You started with, we're gonna get this and do this, and then it's like, nah, the eyes got big, the stomach got big, and then goes downhill from there.
And see, you're highlighting some of the stuff that really irks me with this movie, so I don't really want to touch upon it. But I will say this, you know, there are certain things, certain characteristics and traits that are innate in everyone. You know what I mean? It just comes with it. But for someone to be so skilled and precise, and they're supposed to be the tip of the sword, this just doesn't feel realistic.
They
Like,
lost, the money got them. Yo,
but they have a history of cracking down
that's what he said. Yeah,
kingpins and things.
yeah,
So, like, they didn't flinch then.
yeah,
Why they got the shakes now? Like Pookie.
yeah.
Like, I don't understand it, man.
Well, so then the question becomes, like just rhetorically asking, are they only really as good as the system that they're a part of?
Wow.
So what were they actually good men or good soldiers because they were soldiers? And if they weren't, now left to their own devices, is this really who they are? A bunch of, like the A team gone bad type of
That's what
situation,
it seems like. The
which is
A
what it
team
is
gone
now.
bad, man.
Yeah, that's what it is. But look, man, you transitioned into the hate, but let's get to the cake first, man. Let's talk about that. Why don't you let me know the things that you dug, and I'll let you know the things I liked as well.
So I have a fair large amount of things I liked.
Okay.
Obviously, the casting, you know,
Yep.
from Ben Affleck to Oscar Isaacs, like I said, they did an exemplary job as far as making sure that they had leading men who were able to suppress ego and things of that ilk to come together
Hmm.
to say, hey, you know what? For the sake of the project and putting out a quality product, we don't care how much it's going to cost or whatever this may lead to. We're going to get these high profile actors who are still ascending or in their prime. We'll bring
Hmm.
in, the different combination of guys who have already worked together, like whether it be in a different movie or whatever have you. And this way, there's already an established rapport. And just in case you don't know the names of the actual actors or whatever have you, you'll be like, oh, that guy looks familiar, or he
Yeah.
kind of reminds me of whatever. In the case of, let's say, like Charlie Hunnam, they'll be like, oh, I don't remember his name, but like I mentioned, he was in
Sons of
Four
Anarchy.
Brothers,
Yeah.
or
Oh well, the
or
other way. Yeah. Sorry, I
yeah.
got him confused with the
So
other
I
way.
I
Yeah.
know I've seen him somewhere before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the other thing I like definitely is the scenery and the cinematography.
Mm-hmm.
It just gave me Predator vibes. You know what I mean? Where
Yes.
like,
Yes.
you know,
Absolutely.
that's what I was
Yes.
saying before. Like, it's another character
Yeah.
where
Yep.
the breeze or the rain or whatever, it gives you a sense of dread or high alertness, or
Mm-hmm.
high adrenaline, and it just being on the edge of your seat. The awareness that you have to have of your surroundings.
Yeah. Agree
Um,
100%.
I like the depiction of the various hardships that these guys had to undergo. Whether it
Yeah.
be looking at yourself and being like, man, I got to say the same rhetoric over and over. Do I really even believe the words that are coming out of my mouth? Such as with Ironhead,
Mm-hmm.
saying like to the guys, like, hey, don't take the money and be a contractor. Stay in the
Yes. How
military.
about that? And then he ends up. Yeah.
And then
Yep.
he ends up, doing the very complete opposite. Or if it's Benny and he's saying like, hey, look, you know, I was a warrior once. I like the action. I'm an adrenaline junkie. So the closest thing to it, as far as being a gladiator, is being an MMA
MMA
fighter.
fighter. Yeah.
And
It made sense.
he allowed himself to get beat up. That's the other thing. He was allowing himself, almost like a penance that he was
Mm-hmm.
paying, to get tortured and beaten. And then so on and so forth with Pope and with Red Fly, especially Red Fly. Um, and then last but not least, I like the way that Giovanna is very intricate to the story. She, and mind you, you have all this testosterone. You have this cast ensemble that's male dominated, male oriented, especially with the themes of shoot 'em up, bang bang, military, et cetera, et cetera. But at the same token, I'm like, all right, what does she do that I haven't seen before? And then, if again, it made me flash back to Anna in Predator. And then I'm like, oh, she's more active, because
Yeah. She
without
is.
her leaving the van, or
Mm-hmm.
doing the surveillance of the inside person and using her camera to take pictures in the various rooms and giving them an understanding as far as like, oh, the guards rotate at this side and you go here and you do that, they wouldn't even have been able to do the surveillance to even establish a plan. And then at the same token, nothing for nothing means nothing. That's Eddie Murphy. And so, she's like, yo, help me get my brother out of prison.
Yeah.
And in turn, I'll exchange you this. And then, I want 3 million, which isn't a lot if you're considering like,
We
this
got
guy,
250. You got 250, right? You could spare it.
yeah,
You
you can
got it to
spare, you got
give.
money to
Yeah.
burn. What do you care?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry. Good. You got okay.
No, no, I'm pretty much good. I mean, the other things we'll tap into on the other additional questions and such.
Okay. Yeah, so I agree with you 1,000%. The characterization's fantastic across the board. I really like the pacing of it too, as well. I thought that the movie, I like the lead up to the actual robbery, like
Mm,
the reconnaissance
the
they did, and
robbery.
just the way they established they established the dynamics. I thought that was good as well. I like that there's, even though they're all soldiers, even though they've obviously seen battle, they've obviously killed people, there is this sense of remorse every time they witness someone being killed, or every time someone is killed in the thing, except for Larea's men, which they're then it's like enemy combatants. But any other time, there's this recollection, there's this realization of a life being lost. And even that scene where Pedro Pascal's character talks to them about how many people have you killed. Oh no, I'm sorry, it's Ironhead who has that
Yeah,
conversation, and you can see that they don't even want to think about how
see,
many lives they've actually taken because of what that means for them. You know what I mean? So I thought those parts, and as I was saying earlier, the parts where they're just talking to me about like why they're doing what they're doing, those are some of the best scenes for me.
see, then again, this is a great segue, and I'm gonna jump it off with the
Okay.
hate. I have a problem with these guys having the consciousness of who they've killed like that. Like, they're supposed to be stone cold killers. Like, you're not supposed to be thinking about,
But they could
this,
be,
that, and the
they're
third.
still people.
You can still be people all you want, but you can't be sitting there like,
They're still-
oh, I'm saying, man, I don't want that. There's no coming back from that. Like, nah, man, you're in war, and anything goes in war. This whole thing about playing by the rules and stuff, that gets you killed. Like, I,
but they're not. But that's the thing, though. They're robbing. They're robbers now. They're not the military
you
anymore.
still are carrying that. That's, you didn't just shift into a new person or a new body. You're still
Mm,
that same person. saying you're, and in fact, when it's beneficial for you, you're carrying over those skills that what you were trained
Mm,
to kill. So how can you sit there and be like, yo, you know what? It's teenagers, man. Like, you didn't face teenagers in Pakistan or Iran or Iraq or wherever it was that you were fighting and killing people, and now all
mm.
of a sudden you're doing this for profit. For
Yeah,
like,
that's the
what is
part
it?
that messed them up.
The First Nation is donation. So like you over here
So you
picking money
want
from.
them? So you want them to be cold-hearted killers the whole thing, the whole movie?
No, I want them to wrestle with that when they get back. I want them to wrestle. I
so,
want them.
you want to be a different movie than what
I
what
want them to
it
deal
is.
with all that turmoil when they get back,
I
and
got
they
you.
go and get a therapy session going on.
Okay.
I don't want them in the middle. Like, see, we've both played sports. Do you really trust the guy to your left and your right, or if you're on the court or on the baseball diamond or whatever it is you're doing, who's like, man, I don't know, man. That guy up there, he's throwing heat. I don't think I can hit him. Yo, that safety in the middle, man. If I go over the middle, I'm an alligator arm it, or that center, man. He might posterize me. I don't know if I'm gonna take that. No, you've got to be
Yeah.
fearless. You got to be
Yeah.
in the moment. So when Catfish is like, yo, I don't care who's in the way. I was
We're gonna kill
cool. I got it
everybody.
before, but everybody's gonna get it. If it means for me to get home,
Yeah.
the goal is to get home. We already
Yeah.
tossed the reason why we were here. I'm no longer incentivized except for saving my butt, and I got a cocaine charge back home. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that
Well,
teenager, he's eating lead.
well, Pope definitely wrestles with that the most. Like you can tell, even in the end when they're trying to escape, he refuses to kill the guys that are driving the van. He blows the tires out. So he definitely wrestles with that. So okay, so that's one thing. So that part is the characterization was one thing. What are some of the other things you didn't like?
Yeah, definitely. And then in addition to that, man, I'm gonna try and narrow it down as best as possible. The death of Red Fly.
I
He's
knew
just
you because that's your man's. Because that's your man's. Because it's Ben Affleck. That's why.
no. I was able to distinguish like, all right,
Because it's Ben
like Ben
Affleck.
Affleck is still alive, whatever. But I'm sitting there like, this is the leader, and he
Yeah.
allowed this guy to get behind him. And on top
Yeah.
of it, they
That was.
didn't anticipate that when they left the village, that dude was just going to let bygones be bygones.
Well, they
Like
paid
he
everybody. They paid them off, man. They thought
and
they,
he
they thought
was, and
everybody was gonna take the money.
the kid was like, nah. And it took the old man to be like, no, they paid for it.
Hmm.
So I don't care if he paid for it. There's not
Yeah.
enough money in the world. That's how he was
Yeah.
carrying it. And
Yep.
you didn't think, yo, you know what?
Yeah.
Just in case, maybe we need to double back or do this or do that. Like, no. And
Well.
it's so stereotypical. It's always the guy, whether it be in Carlito's way or whatever have you, it's
Hmm.
always that one guy that you let slide that comes back to
Yeah.
knife you in the back. Nah, man.
So you were mad because Ben Affleck got killed. That's what you
No,
said.
I was angry at the fact that one, they killed off one of the stars of like the characters, the main characters.
Yep. Yep.
Two, the way that he was done it, like he looks and he's like, I'm
Yeah,
gonna
you can
die
see,
now.
but he realized who the dude was. He was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's the dude."
And that's why I was
Yeah.
like, yo, I should
Yeah.
have licked off on him.
Yeah.
The other thing, I think the major point that I touched upon is like, if these are the elite of the elite, how do
Hmm.
you let somebody get behind you? They knew that it wasn't just one guy shooting at them. And they knew
Oh,
that if they fired back, they'd be giving up their position,
yeah.
that
Well,
they'd be
if
able to
you,
mark them.
yeah, if we hold on, that's when we get into one of my major questions.
And how did they not?
Is coming.
How did this guy track them down when they're in an airplane, when they're in a helicopter?
Well, no, the helicopter crashed. The
No, no, no,
helicopter
no,
crashed
no,
in
no,
the
no.
village.
It crashed in the village, right?
Right.
Then they hightail it out of there, right?
On the with the mules.
With the mules and stuff, and they're
Right.
climbing different rocks and everything.
Mhm.
How did that guy? How was he able to catch them essentially in what, 2 days?
Yeah, probably because he didn't have mules.
Nah,
The mules
it
had to be
can't be.
slowing him down.
It can't be that. It just says that quick as no. The mules.
Could be.
They didn't leave no bogey traps. Like I've seen Rambo, I've seen Commando. These dudes are leaving traps. They ain't bother to leave no traps.
You're pulling on my question. I'm gonna get because this is everything this is one of my main things.
And then I'll just fast forward. The greed,
Yes.
Ironhead also getting shot by the cocaine,
Yes.
Larea drug came. Like,
Yes.
you're an elite task force. You're clearing
Yeah.
rooms.
Yeah. Why did
Oh.
Lorray even come out? Why did he even come out at that point? Like you might as well just say they weren't gonna find him. just stay hidden.
I
But,
just
you know,
chalk it up like, all right, I only lost $250,000 when I have
Right.
$5 billion.
he'll be
Like,
all
all
right.
right,
He'll be all right. He's got a whole village of people making cocaine. He'll be all right.
Every day, 24/7,
Yeah.
365. It pays for itself. And
Yeah.
then, things like, you know, they're professional soldiers and their inability to plan out a backup for a backup for a backup plan. Like,
Yeah.
they're just going to let her ride off. She's the only thing tying. He says it. You're the only thing tying us. And we know my man can't keep it in his pants. What did he say to you? Oh,
Yeah.
you can be trusted. And that causes the problems?
And that now you're getting into one of your, I know one of your questions is me. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
get to that part, but you've taken all the hate that I had. It's basically the same thing. I just how fast I got greedy and how quickly their plan deteriorated as a result.
Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the nose.
That was different, man. All right, so let's get to the questions, man. Go go, go ahead, man. What's your no, you know what, matter of fact, I'll go first. I'll go
All right.
first with my questions, man. All right, so question number one, man. All right. So of the five characters, right? The five main characters, right? Which we talked about. Which is the one that you personally identify with the most and why? And I
Yeah.
think you're gonna say Ben Affleck, aren't
No, I was thinking about it and I was like, nah. That's why I
I'm
said this
just
could.
playing with you.
No, no, no. That's why I was struggling. That's why I told you early on, like this is difficult for me because there are aspects where, as a father, as a provider, as a significant other to someone, you know what I mean? Like I wrestle with is it enough? Are all of my efforts to supply whatever it is, and not just financially. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like the love, support, guidance, being the figurehead of my household. Do I fulfill everybody's needs the way that they need to be met? Communicating with them on a level that they can understand, because like here's a great example. Nick Fury tailored his message to each individual Avenger differently. For
Yep.
David Banner, he sent Black Widow, so being soothing the savage beast, that being the beauty, and
Mm-hmm.
then in turn he put it on the phone where he could process it himself, listen in a very soothing, calm voice.
Mm-hmm.
With Captain America, he passed him a dossier because he's the professional soldier,
Yeah.
old school. And then with Tony Stark, he had Phil Coulson, someone he had already built a rapport with, who was
Mm-hmm.
no nonsense and by the book, gave him a flash drive, and he was able to open it up in 3D dimensional, and it was technology by the futurists. It's the same thing here, where I think that these individuals all come together as a collective, and each one of them have a characteristic that touched me well. But the guy that I think for me is Pope. And I say that because I have parts of me that are very idealistic, where I
Mm-hmm.
want to help and do this, that, and the third. But yet somehow, some way, I become my worst enemy, and I become the one who sabotages everything because good intentions pave the road to hell. And you know, I'd give you the shirt off my back, but at the same token, sometimes that's to a detriment because it doesn't allow people to figure it out. It doesn't allow people to go through the stages of growing pains, and in order to develop those necessary life skills. Like we have individuals now who think that the slightest hiccup in the road is some type of major disaster, and they're not able to rebound as quickly. So that means
Yeah.
they shut off completely and withdraw from the world.
So it's the Isaac
Yeah, so it's,
character.
it's Pope
Okay.
for me.
Yeah, and by the way, amazing actor. One of my
Yeah,
favorite actors to see in anything. Like he's amazing. Like even what he did with Moon Knight,
yeah,
incredible. Playing three different characters is
all at
amazing in there.
once. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
What about?
All right.
Hold on. What about you, man?
Oh,
I'm really curious by this.
probably Red Fly.
Really,
Ben Affleck. Yeah,
I wasn't thinking that. I would have thought
yeah. I
William.
would
I would have
definitely.
thought
Yeah.
the motivational dude, man.
Nah.
Nah,
Nah. I want the money. Nah, give me the 250. I'm devil. Yeah. Nah.
word.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, like not like 100%, but like
No, no, no. I
if there's
understand
like
what you're
a
saying. No, I would
percentage,
have thought,
yeah,
but I thought
absolutely,
just because
yeah,
of like who you are, you're a very
yeah,
upstanding individual. You're
yeah,
very principled and
but yeah. Until it's
dedicated.
$250 million in the wall, yeah, man. You see how you'll see what you like with 250. And trust me, if this wall was 250, you might be different too. You might act different also, man. All right, so Netflix, man, yo, Netflix. This is the second joint, maybe even third thing that we've covered on Netflix.
Hmm.
Yo, is Netflix just running away with this whole streaming thing? Can anything disrupt Netflix being on top of the streaming platform wars, man?
I don't even think it's a war anymore. You know how like people are like, yo, it's a competition. This is my adversary or this is my
Hmm.
rival. It's got to be a rivalry. Like to qualify as a rivalry, it's got to be close. None of these other
Yeah.
platforms are even remotely close.
Yeah.
So what? Like Netflix was the one that kind of saved Marvel as far as their television
Yeah.
division is
How about
concerned.
that? Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like,
And maybe did it better. Not
yeah,
even maybe they
not
did do
maybe
it
they
better.
did. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the
Yep.
thing
Yep.
that people seem to forget. Like they
Yep.
don't remember. They had the Defenders, literally all of them with
Yeah.
not only a multi series, some 2 seasons, some even 3 seasons, but
Hmm.
they even as a collective they came together and had their own mini version of the group series as well, and they
Yeah.
just blew them out of the water with that.
Yeah. Netflix is on top, man, right now. You're right. It's not even close, man.
No, not
All
even.
right. All right. So we know your man, Ben Affleck, Red Fly, died in the film, man. We know that. Was there any other character that you felt like deserved to die based on what they did in this movie, man?
Honestly, I thought they were going to kill off Benny, but because his character died in Four Brothers, I was like, no, they're not going to do that again. Have the
Yeah.
youngest die,
Yeah.
um, and then up the pecking order, I thought it was going to be Pope because they were going to be somehow stranded down there and like, yo, how are we going to do this and this and the third. He was the dude with the money.
Yeah.
Then I thought it was going to be Catfish because like, yo, he got the cocaine charge, he's getting a little
Yeah.
reckless, et
Yeah.
cetera, et cetera. Then itching for the top spot of who's going to get murked, I was thinking, all right, it's going to be what's his face, Ironhead, because he's the motivational speaker, and now all of a sudden he's
Yeah.
contradicting himself, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I thought he was gonna slow die. I thought like he would
Yeah,
get shot
yeah,
and
that's
then
what
it
I
would
mean. Like,
become an
yeah,
infection. I didn't think he was gonna make it to the end. So
especially when
like,
they cold camp and he's like,
yeah, I
"Yeah, how
thought he
you
was
doing
gonna.
over there, brother?" I thought he was going to be like,
I
"I'm
thought he was
okay,"
gonna
and he having a
die.
fever. Yeah,
Yeah, I thought that he was. I was like, oh, he's not. As soon as he got shot, I was like, oh, he's not gonna make it. So when he
nah.
did, and then there were parts where it seemed like they kind of forgot that he had been shot. Like
Yeah,
even in the story, it kind of forgot it. Yeah. So all right, I got that. Here's the question: the 64 million, the $250 million question. Are these guys actually good at their jobs, man? Are they actually good? Like when you think about it, and this is just a couple things that I noticed. Right. First of all, they robbed Larea without masks on. They didn't
dumbasses.
put no fingerprint. They had didn't no gloves whatsoever,
Nope.
right? All the stuff that you mentioned, blew up the plane, crashed the helicopter. Like, are they good?
Hey, is your guy going to be here? He said he's
Are
going to
they
be here.
are they good at Mr. Will? Are they actually good? Are they actually the A team? Are they the B team?
I think they might not even be the B team. They might be the C team
Right.
because I'm looking
Right.
at it like this: if you're having connections with people that are very integral to your survival, most of the people on the team can vouch for them. The
Yeah.
guy who comes through, he's flying a biplane or whatever have
Right.
you on
Right.
his own, and he's
Right.
like, "Hey, how's it going?" Like, I ain't got time for that,
Right.
man.
With a
Skip.
suit. He show up in a suit,
And
right. I
yeah,
saw that. Yeah.
yeah, I'm
Yep.
like, what are
Yep.
you doing? And
Yeah.
then they bring this old clumsy helicopter, and it's like, you expect us to get alive, get away, and be alive and healthy in that thing? And
Yeah.
then, last but not least, the thing that really irked me is they didn't take into consideration that they would have to fly between the Andes Mountains,
Yeah. Where was that
the
part of the
terrain.
plan? Where was that part of the plan? Where was that?
And they even said,
Whose job was that? Was that part of the
and
plan?
Redfly even said before the whole thing commenced, yo, if I was 10 years younger, I would still have a trouble getting down the side of that mountain.
Hmm.
So they knew the mountain was going to be, an
Yeah.
issue, a
They
major
messed it
concern.
up. Yeah. Cash rules everything around me, man. That's what happened. The cash got him, man.
I don't
That,
know,
that
you call it what you will, but
that's what messed it up. All right, man. My last question actually has nothing to do with this movie, but it's about movies in general.
okay.
So, right? The New York Times just put out their 100 greatest movies of the 21st century. So everything from January 1st, 2000 forward, right? So we've been sharing the list back and forth. So
Hmm.
I looked at the list, and we have actually covered 8 of these movies, right?
Crazy.
In just 85 episodes now, Sticky Floor. So we are men of good taste. That's the real point here.
Hey, I
But
didn't want to say anything. Go ahead.
but here's the movies that made the list that we've done on the show. They had Black Panther, which was 96 on the 100. Minority Report, which is 94. Gladiator, which was 92. Oppenheimer, which was 65. Memento, which was 62. Inception, 55. The Dark Knight at 28, which is interesting. Also the highest rated comic book film in the whole list. Get Out at number 8, and No Country for Old Men at number 6. So, of those films that we've seen and the way they were rated, which one did they get wrong?
So, just for those that follow us, and you know what, and for those that don't on a more frequent basis, Black Panther was episode 23, Minority Report was episode 27, Gladiator was 57, Oppenheimer was 4, Memento was 64, Inception was 65, Dark Knight was 67, Get Out was 71, and No Country for Old Men was 29.
There it is.
Out
Okay,
of
good.
those, no doubt, man. Um, I'm going with No Country for Old Men.
Okay.
I want to be consistent. Um,
you never liked that show.
no, I had a problem
You did. You did. Yeah.
with Mr. Bowlcut.
Right.
Sinister
Right.
villain, I get it, whatever. But just some of the stuff was really preposterous. I think this is very ambitious. I mean, like Peep Game. You know, Bear with me briefly. Parasite is number one on New York Times. Then it's Mulholland Drive. There Will Be Blood. In the Mood for Love is number 4, and Moonlight is number 5. That means Old Country with No Men is on the cusp of breaking that top 5.
Mm-hmm.
I say this with all due respect because I appreciate what they bring. And, it's a hard job. If it was easy,
Mm-hmm.
everybody could put out a movie. But quite frankly, Old Country for No Men lacks.
No, Old Country for Old Men.
Well, it's an Old Country for Old Men for me,
No,
and
Old
that's what.
Country. No Country for Old Men.
The reason being is like one, it doesn't hit all phases for me as far as like the charisma, the ability of storytelling that will touch everyone from any demographic of all ranges of ages.
Mm-hmm.
With Moonlight, you have something that's very sentimental. A very basic, nurturing characteristic that's innate within all of us, and that's love, the need to be heard, the need to be seen, the need to be respected. In Mulholland Drive, you're talking about being connected to a bigger understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Finding your position in the world. This is more about greed. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
I found some money. This guy is a killer. He's coming to get me because he wants the drug money back. But on top of all that, he's just a masochist. He's sadistic, and he's the driving force throughout the movie.
Anton Chigurh. Right.
Yeah, and
The
what is
Anton
it
Chigurh
saying
character.
about
Yeah.
man's nature? That we are our own worst enemy, that we are destructive, that we are a blight on the universe and should be eliminated at any and all costs? Then why
Well,
bring
maybe
children into the world?
people get different when money's involved, man. Maybe that's the point, man. You got questions for me though, right?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I'll start off with my first question. Can the team's descent into greed be interpreted as a
Great.
broader commentary on post-war disenchantment and the failure of systems meant to support veterans in civilian life?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely there, but I would also say that maybe one of the downfalls of our modern society is that we try to systematize everything to
Mm,
the extent that it makes the corruption a part of the system in and of itself.
mm,
So these men, obviously, they have to have tremendous bravery, they have to have tremendous courage. They're able to work together. Outside of a military industrial complex, they probably would have been better off. But once you start putting that layer into it, and then once you introduce the idea of people thinking, I should get paid more to do this,
mm,
or I should be taken care of because I've made these sacrifices. That systematized thing is what really causes the destruction of the whole them and the whole system in general. Because the way that veterans are not taken care of can't be disentangled from the idea of a military industrial complex where somebody is making a lot of money to
mm.
develop these weapons of mass destruction that are killing human beings. So it's all an interconnected thing. They're just at the grassroots level of it and looking up at the top and being like, "Oh, if Blackwater is getting all this money, why am I not?" Because those are trained mercenaries, and some of them are not even the military people that they are.
Not even half the skill set. The next question is the fate of Tom Redfly Davis inevitable from the onset, or does his unraveling represent the moral cost of leadership under pressure and greed?
Yo, this is so. First of all, right, Ben Affleck, man, we've done a lot of Ben
Mm-hmm.
Affleck movies, man. Some I picked, most of them you picked. But the thing is, man,
Son, I pick
what I
most.
really like about him in this film, he is willing to be right on the edge of, is this a good guy or a bad guy in these circumstances? Because he is the leader, but he breaks his own protocol, right? And Benny checks him about that.
Mhm.
And then he kills the villagers. And they're like, dog, you didn't have to kill the villagers.
Eh.
And then he doesn't want to, he's like, he never wants to let go of the money. Even when they even when what's his name? When Pascal was like, it's this is too much money. It's ways too much. He's like, well, we're gonna leave $200 million sitting on the airfield, right? So he's every man, like men, we have to have a code, right? We have to have a system, and we have to have something that we stick by. And as he loses his system, the plan goes awry for all of them. So his character, I think the purpose of his character is really to show what happens when the leader breaks down. Because once the leader breaks down, the plan breaks down, the people break down, and everything falls apart.
Wow, that's tough right there, man. But he did have some reasons as to why he was breaking down. The pressure
Yeah.
got to him.
Hmm.
His marriage was in disarray.
Yeah.
His relationship with his daughter was in shambles. He no
He didn't need
longer had
250 million though. He didn't need 50 million. He could have solved this problem like 10. They would have been all right.
even less than that. I,
Right, but I'm saying by
but I
like you
think
saw
the
saw
greed.
it seeing the movie and right the greed. That's what got him, man.
Yeah, well,
Like
he
that,
was
like
like,
that,
if I'm
like
gonna
that's
be here, and when am I ever gonna have this
right,
opportunity again?
right. But that scene when they walk in there, they're looking at him and he's like banging on the wall. Still, they're like, "Dog, you all right, man? Like we got a whole truck full of money. We're good. We
Man,
won. Let's go." He's like, "No."
no. um, Third question: could the heist's unraveling be read as a parable about American hubris, particularly its assumption that violence and planning can control chaos in foreign lands?
Yeah, that's not American hubris. That is the hubris of um just people that want to control and
Mm,
exploit, and also believe at different levels that other people are not as smart, that are not as clever, and they're not as capable of fighting back or taking revenge or taking back things from you. Because
mm,
even in this, and you made a great point, Ben Affleck never even thought about that guy coming back to get him.
mm-mm. Nope.
He didn't even think about it. He thought I was gonna kill. Well, it's probably his dad. I'm gonna kill your father in cold blood, and you're gonna let it go because we gave this old guy some money. Nah,
Hmm.
dog, that's not how that works. But there's a well, the big blind spot is thinking that everybody's going to behave the way that you do,
Mm.
and the rest of the world doesn't work like that. So the people in the world, and maybe that's Americanism, maybe that's something else, but thinking that the whole rest of the world is going to operate the way that you do is what causes a lot of destruction for people.
Mm. True words have never been spoken. Last question. Oh no, sorry. Second to last question. Does the ending where the team forfeits most of the money serve as penance, poetic justice, or a hollow gesture that falls and fails to resolve the ethical damage incurred?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. I think that the ending is designed to make the audience feel like these are still good men
Mm.
because they decide not, obviously at the end they decide to give all the money to Red Fly's family, and it
Yeah,
ends up being $5 million. So
should be way more than
I
that, but
mean, the
only they're only
idea of like how much they lost and they ended with $5 million is crazy. But I think that's what it is. I think in the end, they want you to leave it feeling like these guys have suffered and they actually end up with nothing when it's all said and done, which is like
or
a whole morality thing at the end of the
or that they ended up with even more than what they left with, which is a sense of self, purpose, the ability to sacrifice, gratitude, being humble,
book.
the touching gesture of love and commitment. Remember, they're like, remind your mother what kind of man your father was, that he was, I mean, excuse me,
Yeah,
remind them, him
yeah.
being honorable and this, that, and the third. So,
They could have did that by going bowling together though. They could have stayed in America. They could have stayed in America and went bowling
but
and had
this,
that same dap up at the end of the night.
and that's why I said I have a problem with it, which has led me to giving this 3.5 boxes of popcorn, man.
3.5 on this one. Got
Yeah.
it. I'm giving it 4, man. I like the movie. Yes, there are some holes in it, but it's just a fun film for me to watch, man. So I like it. It's on Netflix, so it's not. If you got Netflix, it's
Yeah.
there.
Oh, it's one of the ones you got to watch. So don't
It's
get
a,
me
it's a
wrong.
Netflix film. It's never
Yeah.
gonna leave. It's never
No.
gonna go off there. So
Mm-mm.
you got it, and you can bang that out. All right, hot takes, man. I'm gonna go first on mine. So
Yeah, shoot.
this movie reminds me of there was an episode years and years ago of what's it called? The Twilight Zone.
Mm.
And it was about a group of thieves actually. So they end up stealing this gold. And then somehow in the process of stealing gold, they end up going into another universe.
Oh,
And in that universe, they're in the desert, right?
okay.
They're in
Oh,
the
wait, I think I see this one. All
so
right.
they're in the desert, and in the desert, they all they want is water,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But they can't get any water. And at the end, they start training. They start giving away all their gold. They let go of the gold because they can't carry it through the desert.
Mm-hmm.
And at the final guy he tries to offer gold to, he's like, the gold has no value here
Yeah, not
because
in this
gold is
universe.
free. Yeah, we don't even care about gold, right? And it just reminds me of this movie. And I did a terrible job of explaining that episode, but what's happening here is these guys go through this journey of they think the most important thing is getting the money, but then in the end what they realize is like, we gave up so much just to get the money. We lost Red Fly. We're now criminals. The Reyes dudes is probably still gonna be looking for us for the rest of our lives. We're not like, we lost so much. We had everything actually that we needed, and we sacrificed it for everything you wanted. So that's my hot
Yeah,
take.
definitely a pirate victory. Um,
Yep.
I This is also why I struggle with this movie because you know they have good intentions. They're kind-hearted. They want to, you know,
Hmm.
they're not asking for nothing that they can't physically go and get,
Yep.
or they're not asking somebody else to loan them or give them or anything like. They're like, oh look, there's the bad guy. We're actually doing the world a favor by getting rid of this bad guy. I get your point, but at the same token, it's like all the hardships that they had to undergo.
Yeah, it's like the Odyssey. It turns into the Odyssey in the end.
Yeah, and all they
Yeah.
want to do is get home now.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
But
All right.
but to his credit, William keeps track of the location,
How about that?
and
Do
so
you
it's
think they went back?
oh,
You think Pope went back and got the money?
easy,
Yeah, I think so too.
easy,
I think so
easy.
too. Him and Yvonne, they had a good time.
Yeah, which for me, we're gonna call this the bonus round. Um, I sent CJ a chart about the greatest actor or action actors of all time, and you know what? I think we might have to put Ben Affleck on that list, man.
Of course, you would say that.
I
No,
there
I'm
was
just,
like a round robin.
I'm joking.
No,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
get it.
yeah.
It was like a round robin or whatever, and they're going through all these different categories, like a final
Mm-hmm.
four. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, you know what? You might have to add Ben Affleck on that list next to a Jason Bourne or whatever have you. I don't know what
Mm-hmm.
character. But we got to find a character, one of his many roles to add to that list.
Got it.
Yeah. All right, man. What you got on your hot takes, huh?
Like what you got on your hot take? I just did mine.
Oh yeah. You know what? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. My bad. Um, I've been debating back and forth, so I'm gonna just go with both of them. One, the drug dealer Gabriel Martin Larea. He's a mirror image of the protagonist. I think
Mm.
he too is a man who's been shaped and cultivated by violence, by power, by lust of money, and he's trying to navigate the gray areas in which there's a fine line between law abiding and balance of survival. This guy. I'm by no means whatsoever am I condoning killing somebody for drugs or any other type of thing. But what I am saying is when you're thrust in an area or an environment that is corrupt, chances are you're going to adopt some of those customs and those actions. Whereas on the flip side, if you're in a very kind-hearted, loving, tender situation, you'll reflect that energy as well. Like tends to hand with like. The next thing is, I think that this movie should be remade, and this time the protagonists, the good guys, should be the locals from Colombia trying to get
Mm.
rid of the drug dealer, and then what it is for them as far as like getting the drug money. Do they share it with the rest of the community, or does someone else
I
rise
love
in to
that
fill
idea.
that power vacuum that's been created by the elimination of the drug dealer?
I
How would it
love that
look?
idea.
Yeah, it's just how things would be different. You know what I mean?
I would definitely watch that.
Yeah.
I think that would be very interesting. Yeah, that would be real cool. I remember when you said that, I was like, yeah, that's I would definitely watch that because that would be an interesting joint.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, that's our breakdown of Triple Frontier. Once again, Triple Frontier is on Netflix right now, and it's a Netflix movie, so it will be there. Next week we will be back also with another Netflix movie. So we're gonna do The Harder They Fall. which is a recommendation from one of our friends of the show.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I know if he's listening, he'll be watching intently, as the rest of you will be, hopefully, as well. And the Sticky Floors podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. We are on Apple Podcasts. We are on Spotify Podcasts. We are on YouTube, where we need you to subscribe so that way when new episodes drop, you get them and get to listen to them first. Take care. Peace.